Welcome, everyone. Buenas tardes. And thank you for coming on a beautiful, sunny Midwest afternoon. And we appreciate you braving the weather, but according to the weather report, there should be no more rain. We're welcoming you to the first of our annual speakers in our Transformative Latino Leadership Speaker Series. And this is funded through the generosity of the Dean's Office, and we greatly appreciate the Dean's Office for all of the support that it is giving our speaker series. There is a listing outside in the front of other events that we're having here at our Institute for Latino Studies, so please feel free to take any of those listed events, and you're all welcome. They're all open to the public. Today, I have the honor of introducing our invited speaker. Most Reverend José H. Gómez is the Archbishop of Los Angeles, the nation's largest Catholic community, which I found out has 5 million Catholics, and larger than New York, apparently, only 2.5 million Catholics in New York. It says something about New York, but we won't go there. And the largest community of Latino Catholics as well. It's very interesting that the two are combined. He is also Vice President of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, a position he was elected to in 2016. And he serves as well as a papal appointee to the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. In fact, on Friday, I believe, he leaves for Rome for a week for meetings associated with a number of these positions that he has. The Most Reverend Gómez was born in Monterrey, Mexico. He is a naturalized American citizen. He holds degrees in accounting, philosophy, and theology, and a doctorate in theology. As the Archbishop of the largest Catholic community in the United States, I leave it to you to decide which of those degrees, accounting, philosophy, or theology, are the most important in helping him with all of his administrative responsibilities. And prior to being appointed as Archbishop of Los Angeles, he served as an auxiliary bishop in Denver, and then was the Archbishop of San Antonio, Texas, before then. Archbishop Gómez has played a leading role in the Catholic Church's efforts to promote immigration reform and immigration and immigrant integration. In 2013, he published the book, which is available for purchase outside. He did not ask me to say that as part of the introduction. A book he published in 2013 entitled Immigration and the Next America, Renewing the Soul of the Nation, published by our Sunday Visitor Press. I'll make some reference to it later in the course of our interview, and it is available in Spanish as well, for those who may choose to use it in that way. Archbishop Gómez is a Catholic leader of profound moral convictions, compassion, and a deep faith in the guiding and healing received by those who develop a personal relationship with God. If one has had the privilege, as I have had, to hear 2 homilies that he's given while he's been here on campus, actually 3, I believe, homilies that he's given here on campus, one understands what he means when he talks about a personal relationship with God. His writings on the Catholic faith have been published in the Vatican newspaper, L'Osservatore Romano, as well as in venues including the Wall Street Journal, CNN.com, Huffington Post, La Opinión, the New York Post, and the National Catholic Register. To conclude, he's also a man with a warm, disarming smile and a clear sense of humor. If I do my job right, I might even get you to experience his ever-present laugh. I'm convinced that it is his smile, his humor, and his laugh that are the unquestionable displays of his transformative Catholic faith. Please join me in giving a welcome worthy of the Fighting Irish to the Most Reverend José H. Gómez, Archbishop of Los Angeles. We've structured this as a conversation. I have a set of questions that I'll ask for about 40 minutes or so, and then there will be opportunity to ask questions from the audience. The Archbishop very, very graciously did not require that the questions be vetted beforehand. As Archbishop of Los Angeles, I'm sure he's used to getting questions of all different sorts. But I thought I would use it as an opportunity for us to get to know not only the Archbishop's views regarding current issues associated with the Church, but to also get to know him a bit more as well. Archbishop, could you tell us about your upbringing and what influence you think it had in your deciding to become a priest?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction and
Of course.
for saying nice things about me.
You're very welcome.
My upbringing, as you said, I was born in Monterrey, Mexico, and my parents, my father was from Linares, Nuevo León, and my mother, I think she was, I'm not sure where she was born, but she was born probably in Coahuila, but she grew up in San Antonio, Texas. Her mother and her mother's families were from San Antonio, Texas. Actually, her family is in what is now Texas since 1805. So at that time it was Spain, then it became Texas, then Mexico, Texas, and the United States. So, her family moved to Mexico City after she finished high school in San Antonio. So my parents met in Mexico City, and and then they finally moved to Monterrey, back to Monterrey, and I was born in Monterrey, and I have 4 sisters, 3 older sisters and 1 younger sister. No brothers. I'm kind of spoiled. So anyway, it was a normal family. We were in the...
What did your father do?
My father was a medical doctor.
Did he study in Mexico?
He studied in the National University in Mexico City, the UNAM. And then my mother also went to college, which I think was special because we're talking about the 1930s. So she went to same UNAM, but she didn't graduate because she got married. Those things that happened at those times. But she finished her college education. She studied, I think, chemical engineering or something like that. So first, my father was working for a mining company in Mexico. Actually, they really met in Tasco, Guerrero, because my father was the doctor at the mine over there. He was working for the American Mining Company. Anyway, after different places, they ended up, as I said, in Monterrey. So we were in La Colonia Vista Hermosa. That's close to the hospital, the public hospital there in Monterrey at that time. So it was just a normal family. I got 3 older sisters and 1 younger sister, so we belonged to a parish right there, La Parroquia de Lourdes, Nuestra Señora de Lourdes. And my parents wanted me to go to Catholic school, so I went to Catholic schools with the Marist brothers for elementary school and then for middle school. So it was just a normal Catholic family life, going to Mass on Sundays. And I remember that one of the most beautiful, one of the beautiful memories that I have is in Mexico, at that time was the tradition of going to Christmas midnight Mass. But you couldn't go until you were 7 or 8 years old, at least in my family. So I remember when finally my parents took me to midnight Mass on Christmas Eve, Christmas night. So that was a beautiful thing. So it was a normal. My mother was involved in the parish. She was, I think, the first president of the Asociación Católica de Mujeres. I forgot what, there was some special way that they called that. Just normal family, going to church on Sundays and being involved. And so.
When did you think that you might want to become a priest?
Okay, you really want to know?
Yes, yeah.
It's a long story. Well, no, actually, when you go to Catholic schools, they always ask you, you want to be a priest. I hope that we're still doing that. So. As they did at that time. So the brothers always wanted us to have an active prayer life, and they first ask you want to be a brother, and then you say, well, maybe not. Then they ask you want to be a priest. So that was what happened to me. But then I didn't know what to do. So first I said, I don't know. But then at some point, when I was finishing middle school, I said, well, maybe that's something that you can do, be a priest. So then I decided to talk to my dad. So I talked to him. I told him I want to go to the seminary. And he said, no, you are not. You are not. And he gave me a good, now I think, at that time I didn't like it, but now I think it was a good reason. He said, the only thing I'm going to leave you is your education. So you go to college, and after college, you do whatever you want, which made sense. At that time, before asking him, I was involved in the parish. I was an altar server, and there was a young priest there that was kind of our spiritual director. He was an attractive personality because he got a motorcycle. So,
Did he have long hair as well? No?
I think so. So it was kind of interesting. That's a nice picture of a priest. So anyway, when my dad said that, what he said made sense at that time in Mexico because the separation of church and state in Mexico.
Yes.
Everybody that went to the seminary, and I think that's still the case, everybody that went to the seminary didn't have a recognized title of, a degree. They were just philosophy and theology, but has nothing to do with la Secretaría de Educación Pública. That is the one that gives the degrees, official degrees in Mexico. So my dad had experience of some relatives of him that went to the seminary, and they left the seminary, and they couldn't get a job because they had no education, no official education. They didn't have a degree. So it makes sense. So I accepted that, but then I started to get involved more in the parish, and then something happened later on that I decided to have a spiritual director. So that helped me, and I tried to. Then, okay, you want the whole story?
A little bit more.
You're going to take the 40 minutes.
Yeah. No, it won't be 40 minutes. Where did you study for the priesthood, Archbishop? Was it there in Monterrey? Did you go elsewhere to study for the priesthood?
No, it's a long story. Well, let me tell you something that might be interesting to you all. At some point when I finished middle school, then I decided to go to a public high school because after my dad said, you are not going to do seminaries, and then I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to be a doctor because my dad was a medical doctor. So I said, I got to do that. But then after high school, I said, no way. Because I just decided not to do it. But anyway, finishing Catholic schools and going to public schools, that's when I really thought I need to be a good Catholic. Because when you go to Catholic schools, you assume that you're a good Catholic. Because you are there, there was religion class every day, daily mass, whatever, for everybody. But then at that point, I made that decision. And then a couple of things happened. One was that my mother she got sick, she got cancer. But she was cured later on. And then I don't know if I should tape this, but anyways, my story. One of my cousins died in a car accident. So he was kind of in his 20s. He was very successful, good for sports. He got a great, nice car. So he was, anyway, kind of another good model for me. That's it. I got to be like him. Then one night, he got a car accident and died. And then when my mother got sick, then she had surgery and everything else, and then she was cured. And I guess my dad made a promise to go to daily mass for 1 year. So I was 15, 16, something like that, and my father started going to daily mass. Which for me, excuse me, was amazing. So that's when I thought I should go to daily mass. And I should take my Catholic faith seriously because this is something important. Life, you never know when it's going to finish. My dad was giving me, so, but then there was another little thing there, and that was that when I started going to daily mass, I was starting to drive, so every time that I told my dad, can I use your car? I'm going to mass. He said, here are the keys. So that was the only reason for which I was able to drive my father's car. So I started going to daily mass. I said, I'm going with my friends. Can I use your car? No. So anyway, all that created this decision to take seriously my faith, and really made a big difference in my life.
Wonderful.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So when did you decide, and why did you decide to come to the United States to continue your ministry?
This is a long story. So anyway,
We haven't rehearsed any of this, just so you know. He did have the questions beforehand, but we haven't rehearsed any of this.
Anyway, when I went to college, I got involved with Opus Dei, which is an international organization that helps people to develop your spiritual life, lay people. During college, I was involved with them and everything. So after that, I went to the seminary. I finished college with a degree as an accountant. And then after that, I went to the seminary in Rome, or the Opus Dei seminary in Rome. Then I was ordained a priest for Opus Dei, for the personal prelature of Opus Dei in 1978. And then I was working as a priest in Mexico, in Monterrey, Mexico, so that was a great blessing for me and for my family, because my family was there and is still there. And then at some point, Opus Dei needed a priest in Texas, because they were starting their ministry in the state of Texas. They had started just a house in Houston. They had a priest that was there from Mexico and another one from the United States. So the one from Mexico got sick, so went back to Mexico, said they were looking for a priest. So they asked me if I wanted to come to the United States. And I said, no, thank you. But they insisted 2 or 3 times, so that's why I came to the United States, because they needed somebody bicultural and bilingual coming to Texas.
So your path to becoming a priest is a beautiful story, as you just told. Why do you think it's so difficult for young men and women today to find their own paths to religious life, to becoming priests and sisters and others? You know, we know as a worldwide phenomenon, the numbers that are becoming priests and sisters has declined substantially. As you reflect on your own journey and the journey of all of the young seminarians who you work with and you support, why do you think the numbers are still much lower than they have ever been in so many different parts of the world?
I don't know, but I mean, it was difficult at that time. It was never an easy decision. The priests that are here probably can attest to that. That's always a challenging decision to dedicate your life to God. At that time, I mean, the families were really strong, at least in my experience in Mexico. And the priesthood was an interesting choice, but as always is a challenge. I mean, it's not I'm going to be popular, or I'm going to be a millionaire, or I'm going to be successful. When you think of becoming a priest, you are really thinking of following Jesus Christ. Even if you don't understand it really well, but that's what it is. In my case, I think it was easier because the formation that I received at school and at home. I think my perception is that especially after the Second Vatican Council, there was a little confusion in what the vocation to the priesthood is all about. But I think or the vocation to religious life with the changes of the Second Vatican Council, so it was not clear exactly what are you supposed to do. I think now, after more than 50 years, I think it's more clear. So I think the number of vocations is going to go up, at least in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and when I was in San Antonio, the same thing. Many more young people are considering the vocation to the priesthood and religious life. Because I think it's more clear now that what is it that you are supposed to do as a priest. I think the changing times were always a little confusing. That's my perception. Mm-hmm. Then the change of society. Society was more like a stable society. I mean, at that time, in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, people were staying in the same job forever. Now people move all the time, and there is not stability. At that time, it was more, you live in your, at least in Mexico, you live in your city, you never move, and the people around you, and now for years it's been more, it's a total society, especially in big cities. Mm-hmm. So all of those changes, in my mind, were part of the cause for that.
You've had an incredible career, not that you're at the end of your career, but you've had an incredible career.
I'm ready to retire.
Not yet. Not for the next hour, at least. An incredible career in having positions of more and more responsibility within the church. What was it like when you were notified that now Pope St. John Paul II was asking you to serve as an auxiliary bishop in the Archdiocese of Denver?
That was an interesting, conversation.
How did that happen? Most of us have no idea as to how that happened.
You don't know how it happened? I was a priest working in Houston and San Antonio. So it was at the beginning of January of the year 2001. Hmm? Then I was in my room, and then I got a phone call that time from Archbishop Charles Chaput, who was the Archbishop of Denver. Just a phone call, and he asked me, "Are you by yourself?" I said, "Yes."
Had you met him before?
I met him because at that time I was involved with the National Association of Hispanic Priests. Mm-hmm. So the year before, I think at that time I was the president of the association. So the year before he called me, because he wanted to develop Hispanic ministry in the Archdiocese of Denver. So we talked for a while, but it was just a conversation. I didn't know him really well. So anyway, he calls me, and I said, "Yeah, I'm by myself here." It was Monday morning or something. And he said, "Well, I just want you to know that the Pope has appointed you auxiliary bishop of Denver." I said, "What are you talking about?" And I thought, this guy is calling the wrong guy, because I knew a Monsignor. His name was José Gómez, and he was in El Paso, Texas. So I said, he's calling the wrong, I said, are you sure that you're calling the right person? Because I know Monsignor in El Paso. He said, no, I know where I'm calling. And he said, well, now you need to call the nuncio. and tell the nuncio you accept the appointment. And he said, do you have the nuncio's phone number? I said, you better be kidding me. Like I talk to the nuncio every day, you know.
So he gave you the phone number?
He gave me the phone number.
And you called it right away?
No, I went to the chapel first. I went to the chapel and prayed for a while. And then I talked to my spiritual director. and then, that's what the Archbishop said. This is his phone number, and by the way, he's home. Call him right away. I said, I got to take my time. Anyway, I called the nuncio at that time. He was Archbishop Gabriel Montalvo. May he rest in peace. And I knew Archbishop Montalvo again because I was with the Association of Hispanic Priests, and I met him once. So he was from Colombia originally, so we spoke in Spanish. So I told the Archbishop, after I identified myself, I said to him, I don't know what to tell you. No sé qué decirle. And he said, you have to say yes. So I had no choice. But it was a big surprise. I mean, I just never expected anything like that in my life. And it just, I mean.
As an auxiliary bishop, did you know that you would be considered for more responsibility?
No.
Did you want more responsibility? Did you seek out more responsibility?
No.
But you accepted more responsibility in those appointments.
Auxiliary bishop is the perfect job on earth. It's the perfect job because you have all the good things and you have no responsibility. No? It's like an associate pastor in a parish. It's wonderful. Not to talk about the university.
And when you accepted the appointment to be the Archbishop of Los Angeles, did you know, because we've spoken a little bit, how complex, how profound, how challenging a job that would be? Could you give us a sense of what it's like to be the Archbishop of 5 million Catholics?
Sure, I'll try. Well, first going to San Antonio was a great blessing because I knew San Antonio, I have family in San Antonio. And my grandparents, my mother's parents, were married at the cathedral in San Antonio. So it was beautiful to be there. But it was too nice to be true. So anyway, I got another phone call, this time from the nuncio, Archbishop Zambi. He also passed away several years ago. And he asked me if I, he told me, you've been appointed Archbishop of Los Angeles. At that time, it's an interesting little thing because he was coadjutor Archbishop of Los Angeles, because the Archbishop was Cardinal Roy Mahoney, who was 74, so I became the Archbishop when he retired, when he turned 75. So anyway, the nuncio calls me and tells me, the Holy Father has appointed you Archbishop of Los Angeles. And I said, please don't do this to me. So I said, Archbishop, let's talk. You know, this is a big thing. Let's have a conversation. I said, no. So, you are the Archbishop, and you just talk to Cardinal Mahoney, and no, let's talk, please. So he said, okay, come tomorrow, but you're going to have dinner with Cardinal Mahoney tonight, so it's done. So I had a beautiful conversation with the Apostolic Nuncio the following day. I had dinner with Cardinal Mahoney, and it was a nice dinner. He paid for it, so it was good.
So what is it like, a day in the life
of
the Archbishop? What are the range of complex issues you have to deal with on a regular basis? Or give us a sense of what a typical day is like.
I think the first thing that I have to say is it's an honor for me and a blessing for me to be the Archbishop of Los Angeles. It's a beautiful community. Not too many people think of Los Angeles as a place where people go to church and pray, and we think about the movie stars or the professional players and all that. Really, it's just beautiful because every single parish is packed with people, and the parishes are so active. People come to church, people participate. We have any activity. We have the Mass for Our Lady of Guadalupe every year, the Archdiocese Mass, and we have 30,000 people coming to Mass in a stadium, in the East LA Stadium. It's just beautiful. So for me, it's a great blessing. It's a challenge because it's a large archdiocese. We have 3 counties, Los Angeles, Ventura, and Santa Barbara. And there are people everywhere, as you know. So it's the administration of the archdiocese is a big job. So there are so many things happening. We have 287 parishes in the archdiocese and 10 missions. We have 80,000 kids in Catholic schools. We have 220 elementary schools and 51 high schools. So it's a big administration, a big organization. So it's a challenge because most of my time, probably 60% of my time, is for the administration of the archdiocese. And the other 40%, I wish it can be more ministry because that's what our vocation is all about. But it's a big challenge.
You, a number of years ago, were one of the founding members of the Catholic Association.
I'm making you nervous.
Catholic Association of Latino Leaders.
Yes.
Why did you set up that organization?
Well, that's something I started when I was in Denver. We were trying to, Archbishop José, as I said, was starting the Hispanic ministry because there were so many Latinos in the Archdiocese of Denver. So one of the things that I wanted to do is to reach out to professional Latinos. So we started with small meetings, and then at some point we decided to start the association. And my plan or my desire was to reach out to people that are of Latino origin that have been in going to college and they have degrees and work professionally. Because it seems to me that there is, at least historically, is the challenge of Latinos going to college and then losing the contact with the Catholic Church, somehow. Because I mean, when you are in elementary school or high school, you go to church with your parents, and you have to go and have no choice because you have to be there. That's the family tradition, so you follow that. But then once you go to college and then you start working professionally, it's your own decision. So I, as a bishop, wanted to reach out to people in those situations that they can feel that the church is there for them, and that was the idea. So we have chapters in different cities, and I think it's going well.
And what would you say the major accomplishments of CALL have been so far?
I think the first purpose of the organization is to help professional Latinos to grow in their faith. Mm-hmm. So and I think that's the first. It's going well in that sense. And then also to participate in the life of the church and participate in the life of our country. I think we Latinos need to be more aware of how important it is for us to be active because the values of our culture and our faith. I think it's important for us to see that what we have is an extraordinary contribution to the life of the United States of America. And the bishops of the United States have always said that Latinos are a blessing for the church and for the country. So we have to be more active, both in church and politically, or civic.
Latinos are now estimated to be in the neighborhood of 35 to 40% of all Catholics in the United States, and as you go down the age group, the percentages grow. Yet the percentage of Latino bishops is at about 11% or so, and the percentage of priests, by one figure that I saw, a respected figure, is at about 8%. What do you think can be done to overcome that gap between who's in the pews and who's in positions of leadership?
Well, obviously, first we need to pray more for vocations to the priesthood and the consecrated life. But also, I think I think every single Catholic needs to take ownership of the Catholic Church. Sometimes we think that the church belongs to the Pope or the bishops or the priest. We all are the church. We are the family of God. And I think it's important for us that the leadership comes, yes, from the Pope, the bishops, the priests, but also from the lay people. So I think that's part of what call is all about, and our responsibility, and the universal call to holiness that the Second Vatican Council reminded us. But exactly, I mean, talking about priests, and I think we need to pray and pray for vocations and pray for priests. That because we are really the directors of vocations. So if people see that we are faithful to our vocation and we are happy with our vocation, they will feel more attracted to the vocation of the priesthood or consecrated life. I'm going to get a motorcycle one of these days.
And long hair. Yeah. For many years, you've been at the forefront of the Catholic Church leaders in the country, if not in the world, advocating on behalf of the rights of immigrants to be treated with human dignity and respect that Jesus calls us to do in the gospel. In your book, you write on page 115, immigration is about more than immigration. It is about renewing the soul of America. Immigration is about welcoming newcomers into our cultural and political traditions of citizenship. Why does our country still struggle so much to live this aspect of the gospel?
That's a good question. I think we look at the history of our country. That's been part of what we are. In the first place, this is a country of immigrants. That's obvious to everybody, I think, because we all came from somewhere. Historically, it's clear we have the different people coming from Europe, from Asia, from everywhere. But still, historically, has been a sense of once that you are here, it's difficult for you to accept that other people come. It's nativism and that kind of reaction to immigrants. But I think the way to address that is to understand that immigration is something that brings a blessing to this country. When you think of the immigration of the people from Ireland or the people from Central Europe, from Poland or Czechoslovakia or Germany, you see that it's been a great blessing for this country. So what is the reason for which we are that way? First is that sense of nativism. Once that you are here, you want to take control of what is happening here, and you are afraid that the people coming from other places are going to destroy what you have, which has nothing to do with reality. On the contrary, those people coming, they're going to enrich what you have. Because sooner or later, they're going to integrate to the beauty of this country. I was saying the other day that when we think of, we have a great vocation in the world, this nation. It's been created to be a beacon of freedom and justice and progress for the whole world. So but we cannot ignore that the composition of this country is immigration. So if we are able to see both things, then it's easier for us to understand that the best thing that we can do is facilitate and regulate the movements of people coming to our country.
I have to think that in your position as an archbishop, and especially from an area as enriched by immigration as Los Angeles, that you have had many opportunities to exchange views with people who have views different from your own. What have you found to be the best ways to try to engage with someone who has a very different view on immigration, to begin a conversation, to begin an understanding with the other person?
I think the first, what I try to do is first of all talk about the history of this country, because that's what makes them think. I had a beautiful conversation with somebody that is famous in Los Angeles, and his family is originally from Italy, and I just said, you know, your family came from Italy. So that kind of changed the tone of the conversation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to assure them that personally, and the bishops of the United States, we understand that countries have the right to respect, to control their borders. The bishops of the United States are not for open borders. They also understand that when I talk to them, I also talk about how somebody came here with no documents. That's somehow a crime. So that person needs to pay for that. But a reasonable and proportional penalty for doing that. Right now, as we were talking about, the only penalty is deportation, which breaks families and destroys people. So we need to find a way that people can understand that our country is a country of laws, but at the same time that something reasonable. And then I start talking about how people around them are immigrants also, and they have helped them in many ways. So the conversation, I mean, it starts usually with a big tension, but usually it ends up in a nice dialogue.
Have you tried to make these arguments to some of the actual decision makers in Washington, in the House and the Senate, and in the administration, the current presidential administration?
For sure, I have. And I think, as you can imagine, I have given my little booklet to people everywhere. And I think they appreciate that, because in my book and in my dialogue with them, I try to be reasonable. I think some of the fears that they have are valid, and we need to accept that. But we need to assure them that what we are trying to do is something that makes sense for the security and for the future of our country. So it seems to me that they are open to the idea. Obviously, there are political situations that make it difficult. Especially, I'm optimistic about the solution of the DACA kids, and with time also with the movements of people coming from our country.
You have been part of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the USCCB, for a while. I'm going to say most Catholics have no idea what the USCCB really does or is. What should Catholics know about the USCCB and its work?
That's a good question. I think the origin of the Conference of Catholic Bishops is the desire of the Holy See, especially after the Second Vatican Council, to have coordination between the bishops of one nation. That's what Pope Francis talks about, synodality, that people can talk and learn from each other. So that's the origin of the Conference of Catholic Bishops. Every country has that conference. And I think the idea is to try to work together to help Catholics in that country in whatever they need in their in the practice of the faith, of the formation, on the political issues, on economic issues, and everything, just to help people, to help bishops, to help serve the people with the right tools for the people of that country at that time. I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
No, you are. How often does it meet?
We meet, we have a General Assembly that's twice a year. One is in June, and the other one is in November. This year, we are celebrating the 100 years anniversary of the beginning of the Conference of Catholic Bishops in the United States.
In the 2016 election, our recent presidential election, just over half, maybe it's slightly more than half of white Catholics voted for Donald Trump, and about 70% of Latino Catholics voted for Hillary Clinton. Why do you think that white and Latino Catholics were so divided in this election?
I don't know, but I suppose that was the immigration issue, because it was the most public thing that was affecting Latinos. But I'm not an expert on politics, so I don't know. I suppose that that's what it was.
Do you see that as a challenge for the church, to have that sort of a difference on an election that's that important?
No, I think, I don't know how people make their judgment to vote for one side or the other. But I think what is a challenge for the church is to give Catholics the elements to make a good decision. We have a document that we distribute every time that there is an election. I'm not sure how many people read that document, but I hope that bishops with time are able to help Catholics to have the elements to make a good decision. I think that's the challenge for us. And you asked me what is the most important, or what is the biggest challenge for the church in the United States, and for that matter, the church in the world. I think is that we Catholics need to know our Catholic faith. It's a beautiful faith. It's God's plan for creation. It's God who wants to be in part of our lives, and who wants to make us happy and successful. But the challenge that we have as Catholics is to get to know our Catholic faith.
You've talked about the secularization in some of our earlier conversations, the secularization that is occurring in Catholic institutions, in Catholic organizations, in society generally. Do you see a way to limit the extent to which secularization leads people to distance themselves from their faith?
Well, obviously, I think the example that Pope Francis is giving us to get involved and go out of ourselves to serve the people, that's a big attraction to Catholics. Because we understand today is the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. And it's a wonderful example for all of us of how a Catholic should behave in the world. So I think secularization is going to be changed if we personally try to serve others. But to be consistent in serving others, we need to have a relationship with God. Because we are not an NGO or any kind of just social service agency. We are Christians, followers of Jesus Christ. So if we have the relationship with Jesus, then we can serve other people with authenticity. And the history of the church in the United States, when you think of hospitals, you think or schools, universities, and on and on and on, it's a beautiful example of what the Catholic faith is all about. It's not just going to church on Sunday. It's having a relationship with God and having a relationship with everybody else, making a difference in our society. So I think that's what is exciting, and that's what it will help, especially young people, to see that your life is much better when you have a relationship with God and when you have a relationship with other people. Loving God and loving others is what brings you real happiness.
So I have a final question. So here we are at Notre Dame, where I think many of us see our responsibilities to train and interact with and contribute to the growth of the next generation of leaders in the world, in the country, and certainly in the Catholic Church. What advice would you like to leave with that next generation of leaders in the world, in the country, and the church?
I think the advice is that you realize that you are the present and the future of the church. It's not the Pope or the bishops or the priests, it's each one of you. I think where we are as Catholics is where the church is going to be in the future. So I think you should be excited about your participation in the church. This coming year we have the Synod of Bishops, and the theme is young people. So take advantage of that and feel that the church cares about you and that you are the ones that want to make the church what it's supposed to be. So I'm really excited about what is happening in the church. I think finally, little by little, the universal call to holiness of the Second Vatican Council is becoming more real for people. And that's a great blessing. And I'm very optimistic about the future of the church and how we are going to make a huge difference in this society that is so divided. And it looks, I mean, we had a horrible tragedy just this week with that sad, horrible situation in Las Vegas. And we look around and say, why is it going to happen? Well, you have the answer. We have the answer because we are children of God. And with God, we can do everything.
Thank you, Archbishop. So we have time, about 15 minutes, for questions from the audience. If you'd like to ask a question, if you just raise your hand, I'll point to you. I'd like to have you ask a question and not give a speech. But if you'd like to ask a question, please do so. Yes, right here.
You said that after the Vatican II, there was a confusion on what it meant for the vocation of the meeting. Like, could you develop on that?
Sure. If we want to, obviously, for us, some of us that are old, we know that there was a sense of the Second Vatican Council that everything will change. But we don't know exactly what it will be, correct?
Yes.
You who are old, like me, some of you are not old. Some of us are. So it was a sense that everything will change. So the formation of the priests, the formation of the religious sisters, the participation of the lay faithful. So it was not uncertainty of what the church will be in the future. I think that's what it was. It was the mass used to be in Latin, all the masses, and then it became the vernacular in English or Spanish. So for people, it was a big change. That they thought, ooh, everything is changing. So, and some of the religious congregations changed from being educators. They wanted to go, the religious sisters wanted to go to college and get a degree. It was a change in church and a change in society in the 60s and 70s. So that's the uncertainty that I was talking. Little by little, I think with the pontificate of St. John Paul II and Benedict XVI and Pope Francis, we have the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I think we have the 25th anniversary of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. We also have the Code of Canon Law, and then a lot of the documents of the Second Vatican Council have been understood by people, and there is more stability now in the formation of priests, in the ministry of the sisters and the lay faithful, One is the participation in the life of the church. So in that sense, these 50 years of the council have helped us to be more stable in the way that we practice our faith. In reality, nothing changed. Because in the same way that you follow Jesus in 1950, you follow Jesus now as Francis of Assisi and in the year 2050. So, but externally, there were some changes. I don't know if I explained this.
So, young gentleman over there had his hand up. Did you want to ask a question? No? Another question from the audience. Yes, please.
So recently you had the opportunity to preach to 5 members of the Supreme Court. What was that experience like for you personally, and what was going through your mind when you were planning your homily?
It was an honor for me to be invited to that because it's an important celebration for the life of the church in our country. The invitation, the Cardinal Ward, the Archbishop of Washington, invited me 2 years ago. So I never thought that we were preaching in the situation where we are now. So I was a little nervous. And I prepared the homily. I thought that what it would be useful for people, to, including the people attending the Mass in the legal profession and politics and the justices of the Supreme Court, reflect on what our faith is all about and how it has especially kind of marked or blessed our country. Because our country was created as a Christian culture, and as I said before, it's just a wonderful reality in the world. I mean, when you think of the United States of America, that's why people want to come here, because it's a country that provides people with freedom, justice, and everything. So I wanted them to reflect on how missionaries came, the people, the pilgrims came, and families worked together and created this beautiful country, following God's plan for creation. That was my desire. I think when we think of that, we can make good judgments politically, economically, socially, because that's what God wanted for this country. Thank you for the question.
Yes, Father Matt.
Thank you for coming, Father Mac. I'm a Holy Cross priest here. One of my jobs is to work with undergraduate students. I have 200 guys in my charge. I think what you said about how faith can wane or go away during college is right on. One of the things my guys would say is, I'm just too busy. I have so many things on my plate. I'm glad all the students came with midterms next week. Right? As a person who's taken on so much responsibility, has so much on your shoulders, how do you maintain balance to take care of your health, but also spiritual health, and do all the things you need to do to take care of all of it?
That's a good question. I think it's a big challenge when you are in college, and then when you graduate and start working. When you want to be successful, you have to work 40 hours or whatever. So how do you practice your faith in that situation? I think you do little things like, trying to go to Mass when you can during the week, or reading the Gospels 2 minutes, or saying a prayer. That helps a lot. How you maintain your balance? I think you have to make good decisions. Ask the Holy Spirit to make good decisions on how to take care of your health, and do not neglect your spiritual life, because it's the most important thing. And obviously, do your best at school or at work. For me, it's always a challenge because I want to be with people. So, but I have to pray. Because if I don't pray, what am I going to give them? So I was saying this morning that it's a challenge for me to get up in the morning because I'm not a morning person. So
We had breakfast this morning. I think I know that.
I don't know what I wanted this morning. but I try to find a way to pray with it. And when I'm with people, I also try to pray for people that are with me. And I try to play sports. I love sports. So once in a while, I play basketball with seminarians at St. Joseph. But they have to be nice to me.
Any other questions? Yes, another one. Yes, please.
So I recently moved to America. I'm from Colombia. And I've noticed a few differences in the way which we practice our faith back home and how they practice it here. I can't, when people ask me about it, I can't really describe what it is, but it just feels different. Could you talk about that? And if you feel it, and if so?
Well, actually, every culture is different. We in Los Angeles, we have mass in 42 languages. 42 languages. And once a year, we have the mass for cultures. So we invite the different cultures to come together. And everyone is different. This year, the ones in charge of the mass were the Korean community. So they have different ways of preparing the mass and singing. And so from Colombia to here, I don't know what are the differences. But it's cultural, so I really don't pay too much attention to it, because at the end, independently of how you relate to God, you are related to God. If for some people it's better to kneel down, kneel down. Stand up, stand up. Or I don't know, move your arms or whatever, or be quiet. And so I think that's, for me, I understand your question, but I think you have to kind of accept that different cultures relate to God in different ways.
Yes, please.
I'm not from Los Angeles, but I lived there last year for a service program, and I was surprised at how many Catholics there were, and I was surprised at the big Latino population. But even though both of those are really big, it still felt like Catholicism was like in its own bubble, and that LA is bigger than how many Catholics there are. So do you have any advice for young people, and I don't know, evangelizing culture, but I'm not a sister. I really have no plans to be, so like just being a young, lay person, how to do that?
Sure. I think the as long as you are trying to grow in your faith, to develop your spirituality, your own spirituality, your relationship with God, then the opportunities to share that with others are going to come naturally. Because you are excited about your faith. It's like when you watch a movie that is really good, the first thing I want to do is share that with somebody else. It's the same thing. But, and sometimes we want to be a saint overnight. One day we think, I want to be a saint, and we think it's going to happen next day. It takes a long time, and it's beginning and beginning again. So, I've been in this business for a long time, and I'm far away from really thinking that I have a strong relationship with God. But if you do it every day, then you feel the joy of, and people notice that. As soon as they get to know you, you have a spiritual life. It's something different, and they pick it up. And then you invite them to something, or share with them that you got a midterm, and then you pray, and you got a good A+ or whatever. There's something special with this person. So that's the way that, in my view, that's the way it happens. And then obviously you do some specific ministries helping other people. I mean, I know it's a challenge right now because you guys are busy. But once in a while, just spending some time with some people, or helping the poor, or whatever it is, that makes a big difference. Helps your spiritual life, and also shows that you're committed to serve. office.
One last question? Yes, please.
Father, you said the church we should more think of it as like the lay people, the bishops, and the pope. I'm curious, like, how do you think, like, each of those levels, what should we do to prevent sexual abuse in the future, like on each of those kind of separate planes, like to prevent that from being a problem in the Catholic Church in the future?
Sure. Obviously, that was a horrible tragedy in the life of the church. It was a pretty sad situation. Obviously, we have asked for forgiveness many times, and we continue to do that. And we try to, as bishops in the United States, especially, we have committed ourselves to zero tolerance, so we don't want any of those things to happen again to the church. And then what we are trying to do in every diocese is to have really strong programs to help people to avoid those situations. In the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, we have trained more in 10 years or 12 years. We have trained more than 1 million kids in how to protect themselves. And we have trained more than 250,000 adults on prevention of sexual abuse. And we follow the laws of every state and or country, so we try to be faithful to that in a very special. I think we're aware of the situation, and we are trying to do our best. And I can assure you that, at least from my point of view, I have the certainty that probably the safest place for kids is the church. And I think it's important for us, all of us, to feel the responsibility for it. I think in praying for priests, in helping the priests, and in practicing our faith. As we try to develop our own spirituality, being active Catholics, we are going to make sure that those things never happen.
Archbishop, you have challenged us to commit ourselves to a deeper life of prayer and a deeper relationship with God. Thank you for helping us do that and for inspiring us to not lose sight of what our central purpose is in this life. We ask for your prayers for ourselves as individuals, for our community and our family of Notre Dame, for our University of Notre Dame, and please know that you will have our prayers of everyone in this room and those who you've interacted with while you were here. Thank you very much for spending so much time with us.